Well, Mike Mooney, it is 9 o'clock. And for those people who are joining us on Facebook Live right here on the Kann Advisory page, I want to say thank you to them. And thanks to you, buddy. Good morning. How you doing?
I'm great, man. Good morning. Good morning. It's so good to be here. So good to be here with you, buddy. I've been thinking about this for a while, and just so glad we were able to come together and put it on, man. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. So you've got your coffee. I got my coffee, and we told people if they're going to join us today, bring the coffee. That's cool. So
bring the coffee.
I think we want to probably start this off, and I'll let you go first with kind of a little background on us. And you know what, if we blow past, to use your term on your social media, if we blow past 9:30 by a couple of minutes, so be it. But why don't you give people a little bit of your background first and how you felt this was going to be good for us to kind of do together. And then I'll share my background and we'll get right into the topic that we put before everybody.
That sounds great, buddy. That sounds great. So, just the high level is I've spent the last 25 years of my career in brand strategy, public relations, marketing, communications in motorsports. And that ranged from NASCAR to IndyCar to drag racing, even some Formula One work, where I got to work with some amazing brands over the years, helping to craft stories, to develop communications plans for brands like Mercedes-Benz, Tylenol, Walmart, Sunoco, Sprint. Just really those formative years, coming up in a sport where it was truly about crafting a story and communications. That was really the foundation of where I started my career, and over time. That evolved into my work doing more in crisis management, reputation management, which then led or planted a seed and led me to writing my book, Reputation Shift, which was all about shifting our perspectives on how we value, build, and protect one of our greatest assets, which is clearly our reputations, at a time in a world where they've never been, more valuable, yet never vulnerable and fragile because of the hyperconnectivity in which we live. And we see that frequently on social media and the impact of how we build those reputations. So wrote the book, used that as a platform and a springboard to start my keynote speaking, coaching, and consulting practice a couple of years ago. And, now I'm out speaking on the power of reputation, on mindset, on branding, personal branding, leadership. But if you look at all of those components, and Kraig, I know you'll completely agree with this, is that communications truly is the fundamental part of sharing an idea, getting something out into the world around us. So that's why I felt working with you and having the opportunity to connect with you and your amazing background and broadcast. This would be a chance for us during a time when people are reflecting on what's happening in their lives. They're calling this time the great pause. And I think that is for a reason, where we have the chance to pause not only with what was happening externally, but also really take some time to do some internal work on ourselves.
Yeah, that's well said. And I'm pretty excited about this as well. And for all of those who've joined us here on Facebook Live, this is a new venture for us. Let me share a couple of things. Number one, it was probably about 2.5 years ago that Mike and I connected on LinkedIn, and he had seen some of the things that I was doing when I started my business with Kann Advisory Group, and some of the speaking engagements that I had been doing, and the workshops and the leadership through communication seminars and whatnot, webinars, et cetera. And we just kind of connected. Now, Mike wrote the book that he just talked about, Reputation Shift. And honestly, truth be told, that's one of the things that motivated me to get off my butt and actually put some of my thoughts to paper. And so I've been working on a book for the better part of 1.5 years, which is in its final stages right now. And I'm pretty excited about that. Where Mike and I put this all together was we were thinking, all right, and you talked about the pause. How can we help other people? We both kind of do the same things. We live in the same world. We speak in front of groups. We share our thoughts, insights, et cetera, via social media and elsewhere. And And this just seemed like a perfect opportunity, not to like throw all this stuff at people and say, here it is, consume it. You got to live by what we say, but really just to start a dialogue and a conversation. So with that, we came up with this Elevating You. Now, clearly that ties into the Kann Advisory brand of elevating communication. But our goal here is to help people reach their peak as professionals and as people. And we just felt like that was a great opportunity for us. So we both are into branding, and we both talk about that with people. And reputation and brand go a bit hand in hand. There are some differences and some similarities, but we want to inspire some career growth for people. Not that we're, the experts upon all experts, but I think we're pretty good facilitators of conversation and dialogue, and that's what we wanted to do. And for those of you just joining that aren't truly familiar with my background, I'll give it to you in a nutshell, and Mike knows this. 25 plus years in media and television, radio, 17 and a half at the Golf Channel as a host there. And after that, out of nowhere, an opportunity to be the chief communications officer at the LPGA, which, I always felt like was just a behemoth of an opportunity to go do something for a professional sports league, sharing kind of the background that I had. I always wondered, man, could I really be the chief communications officer? But I know what I know, and I understand how media works. I understand how media goes after their job. I understand how to get media. I understand how to present in front of media. And so I truly enjoyed my 5.5 years there as the chief spokesperson, but working with an unbelievable dynamic team of elevating a professional sports league that, quite frankly, had some amazing ambassadors and just needed a little push, needed a little energy and a little lift. And as I said, a terrific commissioner, great leadership team, et cetera. After that, the Olympics in 2016, I said, I want to put this all to use. And so like you, Mike, I started my own business, and Kann Advisory Group was born. It was actually a rebrand from a company I had started back in 2009. And now I'm traveling around doing talks, just giving back and sharing about communications and leadership. And so that brings us to this, which is Elevating You, and kind of going back to where we were, reaching your peak. And so Mike and I said, all right, once a week, or maybe it won't be, we'll find out, but we're going to give it a shot for our first couple of weeks. We're going to go live. We're going to go live on Facebook. We'll probably go live on LinkedIn at times. And we're going to bring people some information. And so what we did was we came up with a list of topics. And today, the first one that Mike and I settled on was something that's kind of great with both of us. And that is communication skills, period. And why today it's more important than ever. Now, I will say this, folks, as we move through this, we want this to be interactive. So we're going to give you opportunities to fire questions at us through an email that I'll share here in just a second. And we want you to go ahead and email, and Mike and I'll see those. And you know what? A week from now, or maybe a couple of days, you'll see our answers posted right here and also on LinkedIn. And then we'll talk about them as well. So if they come in live, Mike, while we're doing this, great. But we both felt that communications and the skills around communication is more important than ever, with people being furloughed, laid off, company dynamics changing, et cetera. So let's tackle that topic. And there's the email, folks. If you have a question for Mike or I, it's info@kannadvisory.com, info@kannadvisory.com. And if you send me an email, I've got my phone right here. I'll see them come in and we'll tackle these. But let's let you kind of lead this for a few minutes on why you think it's so important today.
Yeah, Kraig, and again, man, I'm just excited. You got me to like shave. I shaved today. I actually took the ball cap off. I think it's the first time I've had a collared shirt. I know I've had a collared shirt on in weeks. It's amazing with these live events we'll have you do. But as we're looking at communication and why I think it's more important than ever is because there are more channels than ever for people to be connecting and communicating and not only sharing ideas or telling stories, but also creating opportunities to build. And it might be building something for their current job. It might be building something for a future job. It could be building the bridge in between. The point of it is that as people are going through this current crisis and situation, and let us be honest, I mean, there are people that are suffering. There are people who are finding opportunity. And through all of that, though, people need to understand the power of communicating, and not just communicating, but doing it effectively. So Kraig, where I was kind of going in my head, seeing as you and I have both had long runs in this field, and honestly from different perspectives too. And that's what I love about this, is that my background had come from more of the behind the scenes, crafting the message, media training with the executives, with the athletes, the crisis work on the back end, where yours was, you bridged into that towards the latter half, but you were more of the person in front of the camera. So you were that person that when that red light was on, you needed to know what you were going to say, how are you going to tell that story effectively and creatively. So from my perspective, that's why I think that right now this is a vital conversation to have, because of all the different channels that are available, recognizing that communication isn't a one size fits all type of activity. You have to understand the medium. The things that you would put in a text aren't necessarily the things that you would say in a conversation, or necessarily the things that you would write in an email, for that matter.
Yeah.
And recognizing where your audience is in that relationship. Tell me what you've seen from your side on that.
Yeah, I would say this, during, you nailed it, when I was on television or doing radio now, Sirius XM or the podcast Tracks to Success. I'm out there either promoting messages on my own behalf, or in the case of the podcast, giving people, and I say inspiring people, inspiring stories, giving them the platform to share their own message, to share their story, which I think is hugely important. And we today, I think a great deal of success comes from storytelling and the ability to connect with people. And so, I was doing this webinar yesterday with a partner of mine at Presentation Partners, who helps me with all my background slides and creative in some of the keynotes that I do. And we were sharing about this new virtual world that we live in and the importance of communication and storytelling. For example, you see people in a virtual meeting today, and they're putting up graphs and they want to share their information about their company. And there's all this statistical data. And I can't tell you how many times I have seen, on a slide, just a ton of information. And I'm trying to I'm grappling with, how do I process this, right? But if a company, for example, I don't know, make one up. We'll use Target. Let's say they're with all of their employees. It's really important for them to give us the story behind the data, the story behind the numbers. For example, if there's a sales team of 200 for a big company, and at the end of the year, somebody has won, salesperson of the year, or 4 people regionally win salesperson of the year, I need to know what their best practices were. I need to know the stories behind their success. I need to feel something emotionally. And so communication to me can't just be about data. It can't just be about information. It's got to be about people. We connect with humans before we connect with brands. So I'm going to throw a statistic at you, and I think you could probably relate to this. And this is why it's so important to me. And here it is up here, communication skills, why it's more important than ever. So follow along with this here. According to the Carnegie Institute, all right, fairly well known, right?
They're pretty well regarded. Yeah.
All right, there you go. 85% of a person's financial success, 85%, is due to personality and communication. Okay?
Wow.
Think about that for a second.
Wow.
85% of a person's financial success is due to personality and communication skills. 15% is based upon technical knowledge. So in other words, you might say, oh, I'm an expert in my craft. That's great. But at the end of the day, can you connect with people? Can you share your message? Do you have one? I say this a lot. A lot of people talk. Very few people have something to say. So, it's true. There's a lot of messaging out there. People are yapping all the time. Are they giving us something that we can hold on to? Is there a stickiness factor? That's where I go with it.
No, you're right, because today everyone's got a platform. That's good and that's bad, because to your point, there's a lot of chatter out there. There's a lot of noise and a lot of volume. So the opportunity for people who want to tell a story, whether that's about their own brand, if you're looking at a career pivot, or you're trying to build your current opportunities in your brand, but you need to know what you want to say, how you're going to say it, how to be more and most effective. And I agree 100%. When I was working years ago at the marketing arm, which is a good Lord, Ad Week, promo agency of the year. I mean, they were just a phenomenal group, but it was all about connecting with the story, tapping into emotion. If you can tap into emotion in the way that you are creating your story and you're connecting with people, you can throw all the statistics you want at them all day long, but it's the stories and the emotion that will stay with them. We had a filter that we use, and I often use this with my coaching clients or people that I'm working with as they're thinking about communicating their brand, what they stand for, what they want to stand for. And it's simple. It's a simple little filter. It's called think, feel, do. What do we want people to think?
Yeah.
Okay. Which will influence how they feel, which will then influence what they do. And, to me, that's always a great little checklist as you're going through your storytelling, where you're telling it, how you're telling it, to really connect in a way that's authentic with the people around you, and understanding what I love what you were saying before, that people are speaking, but what do they have to say?
Yeah.
The other part of that, and I love the quote from Covey where he said, people often listen to respond, not to understand. And I think that's the other dynamic in communication. That's not just about what's coming out of the hot air coming out of our mouth all day long, but it's also about what's coming in. What are we hearing? How does that connect with us? How does that translate? Do we understand what the audience, what the person on the other side is looking for, what they need, so then we can actually communicate in a way that's going to be of value and create some type of experience for them.
So let's think about this for a second, all right? And by the way, folks, for those that have joined, and I shared this on my personal Facebook page as well. This is on the Kann Advisory Group Facebook page. To all of you who've jumped in on this, Elevating You is the name of it. Mike Mooney and me, Kraig Kann. Thanks so much. We're excited about this, and hopefully this takes off a little bit. I got my coffee. Mike's got his coffee. We're up early. We're at it, etc. I think I've got some friends, and I know you probably do as well, who've been greatly affected. You and I've been greatly affected by this pandemic. I mean, let's face it. I had 7, 8 keynotes and workshops on the books that were postponed or pushed back. And there are a lot of people that I know that have either been furloughed or laid off or whatever. And I was having this conversation last night with 2 guys that I greatly respect. One's a CEO of a big financial institution in the Midwest, and another guy was a really, well-established guy in the insurance agency business. I mean, I'm talking like global conglomerate. Okay. You think of the biggest companies in the world.
Yeah. But that's just the people you run with, Kraig. I mean,
well, whatever. But the points that they were making was about today's employees and what they're thinking when everybody comes back. Okay. So think about that for a second. Think about the pressure or the anxiety or the stress that people are feeling upon coming back to work, when they are back in the office at whatever point that might be, or even they're at home now and living in this virtual world. They are doing some communicating. All right. They're doing some communicating with people, but I bet you some of the messaging is, am I still going to have a job? Am I going to, is my company going to make it? So the comments that I was getting from these CEO types was, hey, you know what, Kraig, there are a lot of companies and their leadership that when they return to regular business, whatever the new regular becomes, their employees are going to need to take care of their employees. They're going to need to retain the best of their talent, but to retain, they're going to have to train. Now, I loved that. The minute I heard that, and my branding mind goes off in marketing, and I'm like, okay, perfect. How can I help train so they can retain? But a lot of that is going to be, okay, I'm going to go back to my Carnegie quote, which was all about, the idea that communication skills are more important than ever. And if 85% of one's financial success, and we use that as the career trajectory, or, being able to stay relevant in your career, is based around communication and personality and how you deliver that, okay, that's pretty big stuff. If only 15% of it is the technical knowledge and what I'm known for. I'm in the banking industry. I'm in the financial industry. I'm in the, packaging sector. I don't know what you do, but you got to be able to get your thoughts across and your ideas. And I'll share one more thing before I kind of let you go here for a little bit. Yeah. When I was hiring people at the LPGA as a CCO, we would bring people in, and we did this really cool exercise. The whole company was involved in the interview process, and I would ask people, a few different things. I had a whiteboard that had 3 questions on it, and I called it my 3 things board. On the left-hand column, 3 things you learned about the organization through the interview process, be it 2 weeks or 2 months. The middle column was 3 things in your research about our organization that you feel we could improve upon, and how you would help us do that. All right. So I find out about their skill set. The other side was 3 things that separate you from anybody else that I or we might be interviewing for this job or a similar job. And I would give them this board, and they'd have to fill it all out, and then they'd be done. And they go, here you go, Kraig. And I said, no, that's not how this works. I need you to back up 10 feet. And I need you to present it to me. I need you to communicate all the ideas and the thoughts that you just put down. And some people are like, oh my gosh, they freak out. They get so nervous. Yeah, don't put me on the spot. I can't do it. I'm good. And so my line is, look, you've got, I know it because I know what your office looks like. You've got an easel with all of your thoughts and your ideas. I've got a big board over there, and we write them down. But can we communicate our ideas? Can we have an entrepreneurial spirit that allows us to hold on to those ideas and be true to them, but also to share them and communicate those thoughts to other people? If we can't do that, then all we are is somebody who can write stuff down, and that's not communication.
Well, it's not. It's you're transcribing, you're dictating, whatever that is. That's not communicating. And there's. I was reading something on LinkedIn the other day where someone was talking about press releases and again, another form of communication. And the question was, how do we know when to write a press release? And because there's so many people that's out there banging out press releases, send it. Yeah. And the response that the person wrote in, who had started the thread, was simply this: if you can't answer, who cares? Why should they care? Don't write it, right? Understand what it is you're trying to do with your communication, with your story. Begin with the end in mind. What are you trying to change? What are you trying to influence? What are you trying to impact in those around you? And I love that example with, I don't know if I would have liked to have interviewed with you. Maybe that would have been fun to do that. But I think it's a great litmus test, right? To put people in a position to have to not only write down, but then articulate in a way that's going to, really help them stand up and stand out in a world that's so cluttered and full of noise.
Yeah. So let's get back to making this personal for people that might be listening with us. Right? So let's say you're in your job, whatever that might be. You can be a sales leader. You can be a bank teller. It really doesn't matter. And in that world, and we're sitting here saying that communication is, more important than it ever has been. And with that, what would you tell people to do right now? You're really good at this. I'm not
telling people what to do. I don't know about that.
No, I mean, sharing advice. Look, you were on my podcast, and I've listened to it on a couple of walks I've taken. During this pandemic, I listened to all my podcasts after the fact. But I think you're good with that. So, what would you tell people to do?
Well, I would encourage them during this time, as you're looking at your communications as that platform, is to recognize a couple of things. That communication is a dynamic experience, and I use the word experience deliberately because it should be an experience. I think we've all sat through presentations, meetings, coffees where it just sounds like the Charlie Brown teacher after a while. and to make it an experience that people are going to remember, and not only remember the message, but also remember you, because you matter. What you do matters. If you're trying to find that thing in you and bring it out, that matters. So as you're thinking about the dynamics of communications, in my experience, I would break it down a little bit. I tend to geek out on things, Kraig. I mean, I think I've told this in the past. When it came to like crisis situations, I would like dissect how things happen. I'm a big believer in breaking things into easy steps and easy understandable steps. So with communication, understand that there's the spoken word, okay, of what we say, okay, and honestly, how we say it, the tone.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not just what you say, but how you say it. That's important. Very big distinction in that. The other part of it is body language. Yeah. Right. Are you showing up in a way with that smile on your face? Are you leaning in? I get accused of using my hands a lot. It's the Italian in me. I think if I had my hands tied, I'd be mute. But the point is, are you animated to a point where you're comfortable and it's authentic for you, but recognizing that it's not just what you say, it's how you say it, it's how you show up in that, and then also what you're listening to. How are you listening? How are you making it a conversation and a dialogue and not a monologue?
Good stuff. And
what do you think, man? I mean,
I know you're a forward-thinking guy. I know that because you can't. And I was talk about a cool thing to do. I got to rewrite the crisis communication plan during my time at the LPGA, and I always felt like, heaven forbid something happens. I don't even want to go through the potential scenarios. There are many that can happen within a professional sports league. We all know that. Nobody looks at leaders when everything's going well. They don't pay attention to you. But when it hits the fan, when things are going bad, all eyes are on you, and people want to see how you react. How do you communicate? How, you talked about body language. How do you carry yourself and whatnot? And so every message at that point is magnified. What you say, how you say it, et cetera. So a couple of things. Number one, let me go back to the idea of the types of communication. All right. You got internal and external at a corporation, or maybe you're an independent contractor. And by the way, there are a bunch of entrepreneurs out there who may be listening to us, and everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. They love the idea of what you and I do until they have to be an entrepreneur.
They do it, right.
And right now, it isn't that fun to be an entrepreneur because you're thinking, okay, is anybody going to hire me? What are we doing? But anyway.
Yeah, but that's a topic for another conversation.
Yeah, we're going to have that. We're going to have that.
The pivot and the opportunity and the mindset that goes into it. But,
okay. So let's talk about types of communication. Number one is written communication. All right. So we are all bombarded by emails each and every day, and you can get swallowed up in emails. And you can go, oh, I got to return this one. I got to return this one. You got alerts on your computer. Ding, here comes another one. Do I respond to this or whatever? Or you can get other things done. And you can say, I'm going to set aside X amount of time to communicate via email or whatever else. And so that's all great. But here's the thing that I see. So people bang out an email. And you know what they do? They start with the email itself, the top, all the stuff in there. Where they really need to start is in the topic box up above the subject heading. Because at the end of the day, if I get 60 emails, why am I going to read yours? You've got to find a way to grab my attention. I always go back to this quote from college where one of my professors said, you can't preach to anybody unless you get them into the church. Now, if you want people to read your email, then they got to get the subject heading. So that's important. The other thing is some people, run off at the typewriter or the computer, save the oxygen, folks. Nobody has time to read something that is that long. 3 paragraphs max. If you're going to do any more than that, start a blog, write a book, do something else. Nobody has time for that. So get to the point. What's your message? Okay. So that's that aspect, texting and emails and all of that.
Can I jump in real quick on this? I'd say another part too, especially in email, that has been very helpful. And I often do this, especially when you're going to be writing a book. And I'll sometimes joke and say, my apologies for disguising a book in an email. But the idea of packaging and bullet points, doing, if you know it's going to, you have a lot of things you got to go through, man, just bullet point it, give it a heading, give an intro. Here's what we're going to go through. I'm going to break it down. Then we can talk about this in more depth. Okay. And then it's a headline and bullets, headline and bullets. And I'm telling you, it's effective, and people will greatly, greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, give them the chicken McNuggets. Don't give them the full course meal that they're going to get at a 5-star restaurant. Okay,
right, and you can take it on the call. Absolutely,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Sorry,
there's that. Then there's the standing in front of people, and you hit it on the head. So apparently I've brainwashed you. But my big thing when I'm doing my workshops is, I'm not going to coach somebody to be the best public speaker in the world or the best presenter in the world. My focus is on helping people to become their best public speaker, their best presenter. And we do that with authenticity. And I create this whole thing where we learn about themselves, and they have to find a way to share their own story and connect it to their corporate world and deliver the company's story. But standing in front of people is a completely different dynamic, and you have to own the room. That space in a conference room or your staff meeting, that is prime real estate. And not everybody gets the chance to speak in front of a group. You know this. We've both been on stages and in front of a large people. That is earned. And that microphone is not a prop. It's not that. It's a brand building opportunity. It's a chance for you to shine and promote yourself and your information and all that. Right. So you got to have your message. You got to have your communication, because nobody sitting in the audience, no matter what it is out there thinking, oh, you know what? I'm here for the heck of it. I want to hear you. You got to make people pay attention. You have to make them remember what they're supposed to remember. So I try to always think about giving them an experience centered around a message that is something I communicate, and I try to do it dynamically and leave them with that. So now we're in this virtual world, right? I'm staring at a little camera, you're staring at a little camera, and people
little green light
are communicating via these little web cameras, and they've got to find a way to really love that camera. They got to warm up to that camera, and they've got to realize that is their window to their audience and how they communicate their message. It's really, really important. So we got a couple of minutes left. I want to let you share some thoughts as well on this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that listen, having stood on stage like yourself, having been presenting and speaking before several hundreds of people with the light on you, is very different than being in this virtual space, quite honestly. And some people say, oh, you guys are just natural at this. And there are some aspects that do transfer. However, it takes time. And I'll tell you personally, it took me a while to get comfortable with this virtual space, looking at the green light and being comfortable with it, not looking down at where I am or what's going on around me, because it can be a little overwhelming. But here's what I would say, and this is an old baseball saying for me, because that's my background, what I grew up playing up in the college, is put the ball in play. Just do it. Try it. Start with some Zoom chats with your friends. Start with your family. Do some low risk, experiments of getting comfortable with this new channel, because folks, it's not going anywhere. Even when we get back to the new normal or whatever that shapes up to be, it's not going anywhere. So this is an opportunity for you to embrace something now and be an adopter, so that you can use it to your advantage and be more effective and create more impact in and around your life, quite honestly.
Yeah. I'm going to leave people with this. There is definitely been a disruption in all of our lives. And no matter what we do for a living, when we go back or right now, I would start with trying to spend a little self-time. Be selfish a little bit. And when you're not working, get comfortable with a notebook and a pen. And what I want people to think about is writing down some of their career accomplishments, their messages along the way, the things they believe, the things they stand for. I like to say, have you ever been to a conference and sat in the back with a lanyard on and you were taking notes? And everybody raised their hand and says, yes. I said, all right, well, would you rather be there, or would you rather be up on the stage on a panel of, say, 3 or 4 people chosen to represent the industry, not the company? There's a big difference. Now, to be up there on the stage, you've got to be an industry thought leader. Now, to be a thought leader, you've got to be able to communicate some messages, and you've got to actually have some. All right. Right.
Yeah.
So we've all had careers, and along the way, have you taken stock of what you've accomplished? Have you taken stock of what you think about this? So if you're in the communications industry, what are my beliefs on social media, digital media, strategy, how companies communicate to their employees, whatever it might be? I mean, I've got a book with all my thoughts. I use them in my talks. I use them in various opportunities to speak on panels, et cetera. So what my message is get some ideas that you can communicate. Start a blog. Use it for personal growth, and use it for an opportunity to take your career to the next level. I think we have time right now to spend more time on ourselves, and it's more important than ever. Yeah. If you want to succeed, when companies bring people back and there's only a hand-chosen few that are allowed to still be there when we hit the green light again, right? When we go off the, to use your NASCAR and all that analogy, when we're off of the yellow light and all that, we're going green. Are you ready to go green with a new you? And I think that's important. What are your final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I love that, Kraig. And I think if I can unpack that thought of spending time for you is, I tell my kids this, I've told them this for years. How does the mouse eat the elephant? One bite at a time. So as you're thinking about the things you can do for yourself, the things that you can improve and build upon, listen, I can make a list that's 2 or 3 pages, if not longer, of things that I'd want to improve. But if I don't just tackle one, right? If there isn't just that one thing that I want to get after, I've prioritized, and then I figure out a way to work on that. And then guess what I do? The next day, I focus on that one thing again, and I get a little better at it. And then the next day, I do the same thing again with that one. And over time, I'm going to get to a good place where I'm very comfortable with that one. And then I'm going to move on to the next, because I think oftentimes we as humans, and this is my experience because I've done it throughout my life consistently, and I'm trying to get better at it, is I think I have more capacity than I truly do. I think I can take on more than I truly can. And I end up, pushing pebbles instead of moving boulders. And I would just encourage people to think about, yes, this is the time to reflect and grow, but what's that one area that you really want to dig into and claim and make yours?
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Yeah.
Well, so the topic today was communication skills, right? Why it's more important than ever. And Mike and I started this here today on this particular Thursday, the 14th of May. We don't know where this whole thing's going, but we had some great ideas on trying to help and share and give us a chance to have a cup of coffee and just talk it through. And the next time, and you brought this up, we're going to talk about staying relevant, all right, in an ever-changing environment. So why don't you share, give everybody 30 seconds on where you came up with this topic and the meaning behind it.
Sure. And it really comes from, I was thinking about this even before COVID-19 happened, is that we all need to figure out our space of relevance. And relevance isn't just about the job, that we're doing. Relevance is also about who we are, unpacking and identifying those things that make us uniquely us, that make us stand out and stand up, and the people in the groups around us. So I believe that if you can figure that out and figure out the relevant points for yourself and who you are and where you are, you can then take that to what you do and where you do it, and to bring it to life in a way that is going to, again, build distinction, that is going to help your career, your life, blow open doors of opportunities that you never thought were even there. Yeah. So that's why I just felt, it was even more relevant today based on what we're experiencing, because there's a lot of pressure around this idea of how do I stay relevant? What do I do to keep the job? But, that to me is just one piece of it. It's really about us as individuals too.
Yeah, this is an interesting time, and the best of the best that continue to progress forward and move forward and be able to succeed or stay within their industry, stay within their career. I'm gonna make it real for people, right? So let's use this new business world that we're all in and say that you're out on a boat, and there are 25 of you, and that boat is about to to capsize and go over. And there are only 15 life preservers, okay? But there's 25 people on the boat. What makes you savable? What makes you the person that some company can't do without? I know that sounds a little bit harsh, but at the same time, that's the world we live in because everybody's cutting back. So if we're going to stay relevant, if we're going to grow our skill set, if we're going to be ahead of everybody else, not following the curve, but setting the curve for our career, how do we grow the skill set? And when we come back the next time, next week, we're going to actually talk about that and try to help people with that concept. So before we go, I know a lot of people, hopefully they've shared some questions and we'll be able to answer those. But if anybody wants to learn more about you, Mike, where can they do that? Where can they get that information? Obviously, I've put it up, but you can share a little bit more about your website.
Well, sure. You can go to my website, mikemooney.com, and I've got video series on there. I've got blogs as well as information on my book and the messages that I share with leaders and entrepreneurs and organizations. You can also hit me up on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you go to Mike Mooney Speaks is my Facebook page, at Mike_Mooney is where you can find me on Instagram and Twitter as well. Would love to connect, and also on LinkedIn. Let's connect there too. That would be great.
A lot of social media platforms. You can find me on LinkedIn at Kraig Kann. You can find me at Kraig Kann on Instagram. It's all easy, 2Ks, and same with the Kann Advisory Facebook page, which is where you're at today. And hopefully we're streaming this on Mike's Facebook page as well and get our audience to grow a little bit. You can go to my website, kannadvisory.com. You'll learn about being the green shoe and how to stand out and separate yourself from other people. You'll learn about my workshops that are tied to communication leadership, keynote opportunities, and other things that I'm doing on a consulting space, one-on-one and with companies as well. And Mike and I also do some joint ventures together. So that's been a lot of fun. So if you want to reach out to us, there you go. There's a couple of website opportunities. And next time, Thursday, the 21st of May, we're going to do this again. All right. So don't make any plans, buddy. We got to get the coffee brewing next Thursday.
More coffee.
Yeah.
So that means I got to shave again. I'm going to have to get my hair done.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. That'll be good. I'm looking forward to it, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man. This is great.
I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. The topic new each week, and the title of this whole thing, Elevating You, Reaching Your Peak with Kraig Kann and Mike Mooney. As we say, brand new, inspiring career growth conversations. And we'll do it again next Thursday. Hope you'll spread the word. And again, if you have questions for us, info@kannadvisory.com. Mike, you have a wonderful day. I'm off to another meeting, and I'm sure you are as well.
Absolutely, my friend. You be great. And cheers to everybody out there as well. Thanks for coming along with us.
Appreciate it. I'm going to click off my camera. You'll do the same. And everybody, thank you so much for being a part of this, the first one that we do. And we'll probably replay this somewhere along the way as well. Take care, Mike. Have a good one.
Cheers.